Today, we're going to dig into the AI success story of a true financial giant, JP Chase. Now, this isn't just about plugging in some new tech. It's a story about a massive shift in thinking, how JPMC went from being a gatekeeper of innovation to building guardrails that actually make things go faster. And trust me, that's a shift any leader can learn from.
You probably think of JP Chase as, well, a bank, but under the hood, they really operate like a huge tech company. Their whole mission has been to weave AI into the very fabric of their operations, totally transforming every single department. This isn't some far-off sci-fi idea. It's what they're building right now.
And that question right there gets us to the core of the challenge. I mean, we're not talking about a small team of data scientists tucked away in a corner. We are talking about getting 200,000 employees, from traders to analysts, you name it, to actually use AI every single day. So how on earth do you pull off that kind of massive change? Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start by breaking down JPMC's blueprint for success. Then we'll look at why so many other companies get stuck. We're going to really zero in on that critical shift from approvals to guardrails, explain what an AI operating system is, and then wrap up with a solid action plan for any leaders watching.
All right, first up, JPMC's AI Success Blueprint. Let's really get into the what, the fundamental pieces that made this whole thing possible at such a massive scale.
So their success really boils down to these three pillars. And you got to pay attention to the order here. First, they figured out the governance, the rules of the road, before they tried to scale. Super important. Second, the leadership was all in. The CEO made it a top priority for the whole business. And third, they built one single centralized AI platform for everybody, so they weren't just creating chaos. These were the absolute must-haves. Okay, so knowing the ideal is one thing, right? But let's talk about what really happens at most companies. Why do so many of them struggle to get AI off the ground? This is where you see that huge gap between what they want to do and what they actually get done. The first big difference is right at the top, at the strategic level. JPMC sees AI as the literal operating system for the future of finance. It's a deep, long-term structural investment. But a lot of other firms, they treat it like just another digital transformation project, and they're always asking, what's the short-term ROI on this? That changes everything.
And check out the leadership model. This is huge. At JPMC, the push came from the very top, the CEO, the business leaders. It's a business thing. Compare that to the typical company, where AI is often a bottom-up push from the IT department, trying desperately to get the business side to pay attention. That one difference decides if AI is core strategy or just another tech tool. This slide shows the platform difference perfectly. On the left, you've got JPMC, who built one central AI factory for everyone to use. But the typical approach on the right, well, I like to call that AI sheds, where every department builds its own little solution in its own little shed. And you know what that leads to? A total mess of fragmentation, duplicated work, and a mountain of tech debt. And really, all these differences, they all come down to this one core conflict, which this image captures perfectly. It's the ultimate balancing act for any big company, right? How do you get the incredible speed of AI without sacrificing safety and control? This is the fundamental problem that JPMC figured out how to solve. And the answer is all in the governance model. On the left, JPMC built a highway with guardrails. It lets people move fast, but within safe boundaries. We're going to get into that. But on the right is what most companies have, approval governance, which is basically a giant gate with a long line. It creates a massive bottleneck and just crushes the pace of innovation. So let's really dig into the how. This is the absolute heart of the strategy, making that critical shift from approvals to guardrails. This is the real playbook for how you can move fast, but do it safely. So first, let's define the old way, the way that drives everybody crazy. Approval governance, the gatekeeper model. Every single little AI idea has to go through a long, painful, formal approval process. And the result is totally predictable. Everything slows to a crawl, and eventually people just give up on trying to innovate at all. Now contrast that with guardrail governance. Instead of approving every single car on the road, you build a safe, modern highway with really clear guardrails. You tell your teams, hey, as long as you stay between these lines, you are free to drive as fast as you want. This gives them the freedom to experiment and innovate like crazy because they know exactly where the safe boundaries are. So how do you even start building these guardrails? It's really a three-step process. First, you've got to classify your risks.
not all AI is equally dangerous, right? Second, you differentiate your rules. An internal tool that summarizes meeting notes should have way simpler rules than an AI model making credit decisions for customers. And third, you have to make everything traceable. You need logs. You need to know who did what, with what model, and when. It's all about accountability. Okay, so guardrails are the rules of the road, but you still need the road itself, right? This is the other half of the puzzle, the enterprise AI operating system. The whole goal here is to hide all the insane technical complexity and just make AI's power accessible to everyone in the company. The best way to think about this is like the operating system on your computer or your phone. You don't need to know how the processor or the memory works just to use an app, right? The OS handles all that complexity for you. Well, an enterprise AI platform does the exact same thing for AI. It gives business teams a simple, standard way to use incredibly powerful models without needing to have a PhD in machine learning. And let me tell you, the benefits of doing this are just huge. You can swap models in and out super easily, so you don't get locked into one vendor. You enable real self-service, so teams aren't stuck waiting for IT. And here's the kicker. When one team builds something amazing, you can copy it and use it everywhere, which makes the cost of each new AI solution just plummet. So we've seen the what and the how. Let's bring this all together into a final, really actionable blueprint for any leaders out there who want to drive this kind of change in their own companies. You know, when you boil it all down, it really comes down to courage. The courage to make 4 key moves. Dare to elevate AI from just a project to a core strategy. Dare to empower your business teams to take the lead. Dare to centralize your technology into one platform. And finally, dare to draw guardrails instead of just building gates. And that leaves us with one last thought. Forget about trying to do everything at once. This journey doesn't start with some perfect 100-page AI strategy document. It starts with a much simpler, much more practical question. Is your organization ready to draw its very first AI guardrail? Because that one single shift in mindset, well, that could be the key that unlocks everything else.